South Africa leaps from crisis to crisis. Now, government is engaging religious leaders to engender social cohesion and societal renewal. The meeting will discuss unemployment, inequality, gender-based violence and crime. Deputy President Paul Mashatile led the government delegation. This is where we find our reporter Heidi Giokos, who's been following the story for us, and she joins us now live. Heidi, of course, we saw the Deputy President taking to the podium earlier today. What did he have to say?
Yes, Masako, we do know that Deputy President Paul Mashatile, together with a number of other ministers, including Social Development Minister Lindiwe Zulu, as well as Sports and Arts and Culture Minister Zizi Godwa, really speaking about how this country is in a crisis. And there are many, many problems that we face, but it's important for everybody to work together. And I think the big issue here is that there are many issues, especially when it comes to service delivery, especially when it comes to issues of crime. We do know that many areas have been really struggling without water supply, and that's a basic human right to have access to water, never mind the ongoing energy crisis that we are constantly facing. So the problems are many, and it's interesting that the Deputy President has decided to chair and head up this conversation with a number of religious leaders from all walks of life to really get to the bottom of the problems and try and find a way to deal with all of this, and to include religious leaders in these conversations, but not just conversations, but also in these solutions. Before we listen to what the Deputy President had to say about cohesion and working together, you're probably wondering where I am and why I'm standing here, but we know that the Water and Sanitation Minister, after many pleas and cries and call-outs for the minister to the Water and Sanitation Minister, Senzo Mqunu, to intervene urgently in the water crisis, especially in the south of Johannesburg, since they have not had water since mid-August, has now decided to engage with the community here, probably at around 2 o'clock this afternoon. Community members will hear from the Water and Sanitation Minister, and a scathing statement was actually released by that department over the weekend to say, but where is the mayor of the city of Johannesburg in all of this? All stakeholders, including Joburg Water, Rand Water, municipalities and the city's mayor, Kabelo Kwamanda, need to get to the bottom of this crisis. And it all ties in with what the Deputy President is trying to do here, is to try and find solutions to the many problems that South Africa faces. Let's listen to what the Deputy President had to say.
Let us renew our strength and apply the same resilience that we did when battling apartheid in order to construct the South Africa that our forefathers envisioned. To address these difficulties, a collaborative effort involving not only government entities, but also active participation of all segments of society, interfaith, communities, community organizations, many out there in our society need to get together so that together we can effect societal change. Now more than ever, we must join forces to counter what has grown to threaten our communities.
And Heidi, what did those gathered there have to say in response to the Deputy President? I mean, social cohesion means that we all have the shared services in a community, and that's not the case here in South Africa.
Certainly not, Masako, but interestingly, the media was asked to leave after the Deputy President spoke, as well as the Minister of Social Development and the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture. We were asked to leave the meeting as religious leaders were going to obviously ask questions or have their say about the state of South Africa. So that was a bit discouraging, given that it would have been interesting to hear what religious leaders have to say, with many actually really coming out time and time again to say that this country is in crisis mode, and leaders need to step up to urgently address these many issues. And at the heart of this, really, Masako, we do know that many communities, I was looking at social media last night and people responding to, for example, the water outages in parts of Midrand, and some people were commenting and saying at least they know what it's like to have water. There are certain areas, for example, in KZN, that have never had access to fresh, clean water out of their taps. Or, for example, since the April floods last year, they still don't have access to water. So it's these kind of things that really affect our communities and the people on the ground. And as much as there is conversations about social cohesion and everybody coming together, it's about implementation and action. And it would have been important to hear those conversations and to hear the plans and the suggestions about how they are going to better these communities. It's not just the water crisis, but if you just look at what's happening in terms of crime and even, substance abuse, that's also really affecting many communities, how they're going to deal with all of that. But unfortunately, we weren't part of that, and then we had to head here, given that the Minister of Water and Sanitation will be heading here probably in the next hour or so.
All right, we'll catch up with you later, Heidi, on that particular story as well. Very important one. ENCA reporter Heidi Giokos live for us in Johannesburg.